easily a quorum, Steve.
Yes, we do. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people they may gather in one place. This meeting of the Bhrsd Regional School District School Committee will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the district website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Pursuant to Mass General Law 7C 30A, after notifying the chair of the public body, any person may make a video or audio recording of an open session meeting of a public body or may transmit the meeting through any medium. This meeting is being recorded by CTSB and will be used for transcript. The listing of agenda items are those reasonably anticipated by the chair, which may be discussed at the meeting. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. So I'm going to start out with a roll call because I'm really not sure who's here, so I want to get an idea, and I'm actually looking. So one of the things tonight, because it's such a popular meeting, we have over 80 participants already. So having a public discussion tonight will be near impossible, but there are 4 meetings scheduled with the superintendent. I will allow some public comment, but obviously if everyone here wants to speak for their 3 minutes, it's just going to take too long, and doing it through Zoom is cumbersome at best. So everyone just bear with me. We'll do the best we can. But hopefully we'll get a lot out of this meeting. So I'm going to start with a roll call just so I know who's here. Ann?
Here.
Jason?
Here.
John? I see John. Rich?
Here.
Molly?
Here.
Bill? I don't see Bill. Okay, Diane? Dan?
Yes.
Thank you. Andy?
Here.
And so the only 2 missing right now are Diane and Bill.
I'm on.
You're on.
Yep.
Okay, Bill.
Myself. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I can't see everyone. I just can't see everyone, so I just want to make sure I know who's here or not. First thing is we have the pledge of, no, we won't do the pledge. It's too cumbersome on Zoom. Minutes, June 18th, 2020. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. I have a motion by Andy, a second by Sean. Any discussion? Hearing none, as because it's a virtual meeting. Roll call. Ann?
Yes.
Jason?
Aye.
Dawn?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Molly?
Yes.
Bill? Unmute yourself, Bill.
I'm here.
Okay, yes? I
Yes.
need a yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Dan?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
And myself, yes, so it's unanimous. Moving on, the big attraction, the superintendent's report.
Okay, so first of all, I'd like to thank everybody for joining the call. At this moment, there are 99 people on the call, which is quite remarkable. I imagine more people will join. For people who don't have a copy of the agenda in front of them, it's on the school district's website if you want to go there to see it. And just for people who don't have a second to look it up or can't manage a couple screens at a time, we're going to have a couple things that are really interesting. A presentation on sustainable monument that should take about 15 minutes. A draft resolution around renaming the middle school and setting a hearing date for that. and then 2 votes, one on a revised school calendar and one on an MOU for the cooperative contract. Then we'll switch over to talk about COVID-19 and our reopening plans, and I'll go through in pretty good detail where we are with that. And when I get to it, I'll give a little more context. And then I think after that, that's when Steve may have some comment. I also, in a letter that I sent yesterday to 1,500 people, announced 4 sort of open houses or chats that I'm going to do with the community next week. And I'll share those dates later in the meeting, but that'll be another time to respond to questions. And pretty much every day I get 4 updates from the state, and we're trying to incorporate those into future reports. So a lot of things we have answers to, a lot of things we don't have answers to, and we're working on it. And some stuff we're negotiating with our unions. So that has yet to be determined. But that's the overview of the meeting for tonight. Typically, we start our meeting with good news, but I'm going to forego that. There's lots of good news. Teachers and students and the school committee, everybody's working really hard and doing a lot of planning. I think what we'll do is we'll go right to the Sustainable Monument presentation. Mary's going to do that. There are many partners on the call with her, Jen and Will and Sam, and more and more. I can't see them all. Thank you for your work on this. And we're really looking forward to hearing about that. So Mary, take it away.
Thank you. Are you able to see the Sustainable Monument presentation slide?
Yes. Yeah.
Great. So I'll hand it off to Sean to introduce us.
Great. Thank you, everybody, for allowing us to take some time. We know that there's a lot going on tonight, so we'll try to be as brief as we can. But we do feel like there's been quite a bit of work that's been done in this effort. Everybody in the school committee is aware of the Mass Ideas Planning Grant that we received over about a year and a half ago that allowed us to take a really deep look in terms of where we wanted to go as a school. Specifically, we wanted to make sure that sustainability and agriculture were woven into our planning grant, given the existing resources that we had to tap into. So with that in mind, we started a deep dive using existing community partners such as Mary Stuckland with Berkshire Net Zero, along with Will Conklin from Green Agers and Jen Saleh with Woven Roots Farm. The initial work was led by Charlie Medeiros on the student side of it, who initiated a composting program, as well as led a virtual sustainability summit that was attended by several students and faculty and community partners in our area. From there, during the wintertime, we were able to visit an exemplar school in Montpelier High School in Vermont, in which was visited by 2 faculty members, Elsa Hernandez and Gordy Soul, as well as Jen Salonetti from Woven Roots, her son Diego, who's also one of the students that is part of this team, and myself. From there, we put together a team of that was equal parts students, staff, and community partners to look at ways in which we could better integrate sustainability, ecology, and agriculture into our existing program, to better utilize our campus and our local resources to give all of our students really an education that would support the direction that we would like to go, obviously as a school and district, but we would also believe it's inherently important for them to be prepared for the years ahead relative to supporting sustainability. So I'll turn it over to the current leader from a student perspective is Sam Schroeder, who Charlie Medeiros passed the torch on to. Sam has been instrumental in developing our report and recruiting students to be part of this team, and he will continue in that direction relative to serving as an intern at Monument under the tutelage of Will Conklin. So Sam, go ahead.
Yeah, so this slide is how we define sustainability in general, and then also how we defined sustainability in terms of Monument. So sustainability is about the world that we are leaving for our children. their children, and their grandchildren. The effects of our actions must not result in a world that is unlivable and unjust for these future generations. For Monument, this means that sustainability must be embodied by all aspects of our school system and accessible to all students. This ensures that students are learning to be engaged citizens and understanding how their actions matter, becoming strong advocates for sustainability and justice throughout the school, district, and community. So then we took the idea of sustainable monument and we broke it down into 3 pillars: physical place, educational program, and organizational culture. And as you can see, each of these 3 pillars are then broken down into 3 subcategories. So this image here is sort of our general framework for sustainable monument, how we organize our thoughts. And it's in a circle just to sort of emphasize the fact that it's all connected, right? One piece, sustainable monument can't exist without all 3 pieces working hand in hand. So the first pillar of sustainable monument is organizational culture, which is then broken down into 3 subcategories of mission and core value alignment, whole system ownership, and wholesome habits. So really what we focused on with organizational culture is responsibility, ownership, and habit. So responsibility in terms of everyone here on this Zoom call being a part of the Berkshire Hills community and taking responsibility for the land that, you know, we call home. And then ownership from and by the school and the students and the teachers and everyone in the school system, and then taking these things and turning them into habit, making it become part of the school culture of Monument. So yeah, that's sort of the organizational culture piece. Then the second pillar of Sustainable Monument is educational program, which we broke down into experiential and vocational learning, interdisciplinary curriculum, and student leadership and eco-literacy. So really what we focused on here is integration in terms of taking existing resources and existing programs and how can we combine these, how can we adjust and redesign these existing resources to maximize their potential and to maximize the student experience and to maximize the teacher and administration experience as well. So, you know, we talked a lot about the horticulture program and Project Sprout and all these existing things that we have available and that right now are underutilized. And I'd also like to mention, in terms of the current atmosphere and COVID, you know, we added a piece into our document about outdoor classrooms, right? It's a great way to get creative and promote, you know, social distancing or, you know, having an in-person learning experience, but in a safe environment, or, you know, moving some classes outside. How can science classes utilize the space around the school to learn? So that's sort of what we focused on for educational program.
Thanks, Sam. So the third pillar is physical place, which right now, I just want to say that everybody recognizes that there's limitations right now. Whether, you know, is the school going to be remodeled or rebuilt? COVID-19, are we going to have all our kids in school? Is it hybrid? There's so many that, like, the future is just up in the air. So we do recognize limitations, but as far as planning goes, what the goals of Sustainable Monument in terms of physical place are to have healthy systems, to have an engaging and active eco-friendly design, and to have progressive environmental efficiency. So as you can probably tell, we want to make sure that the air is clean, that, you know, eventually we transition to renewable energy, and so much more, which please take an opportunity to read the PDF, because just these 3 slides of the pillars doesn't do it justice, all of the goals for these 3 pillars. So essentially, how are we going to get there? Because there's so much that can happen. You know, growing food on campus, you know, potentially buying solar panels, having electric car charger stations, farm to school. Like the ideas are endless for how we can really, we're just super excited about all the opportunities here. So how are we going to do this? How we have done it in the past is we've had interns like Charlie Medeiros, who started the composting program, but it didn't necessarily take off because school shut down because of COVID. We've had farm stands led by students. We've had Project Sprout kind of acting as a standalone program. So before, it's all been passive. So we have a plan, which we called the roadmap for success, so that we're more active in our intentions and in our goals.
So one huge part of our goal and how we get there is going to be student involvement and leadership. So obviously, as you can see, there's a ton of options in terms of students being involved and students being in leadership roles. So I'll just talk for a second about what I'm doing. So I've been involved with this committee since February and just helping out. And then this coming school year, I'll be transitioning into an internship where I'll be continuing this work and developing a student sustainability team where we'll be, working on a sustainability assessment for the school, seeing where the school is at in terms of environmental sustainability, and then presenting those results to the community, to other students, getting everyone involved. So that's just how I'll be involved, but there's tons of ways for students to be involved in this.
And when we are considering whole school leadership, we recognize that it's really important that this is something that is understood and put into practice from many different aspects of the school community. So we're considering staff and faculty, the school committee, students, community members, parents, businesses. And so within the framework and roadmap that we've laid out, we have addressed a number of different ways for that to be incorporated. We're looking at significant curriculum transformation that is actually already in progress, and in terms of interdisciplinary studies, and utilizing the framework that is already in place, not necessarily creating new classes, but integrating classes together. And then, finding ways to be able to continue the work through a Sustainable Monument Committee. As Sam had mentioned, the student leadership representation within the school government, and ultimately being able to see this example in success and then expanding into district-wide adaptation. In terms of curriculum transformation and growth, we, as I just mentioned, the interdisciplinary studies is a significant piece of our roadmap. There's also, we're recognizing the need for professional development, a number of different areas of hands-on learning throughout all the different classes, and an integration of the involvement of student leadership in a way that builds upon it and allows us to be able to keep this in perpetuity as a holistic system, and not just a singular idea of one student or a small group of students.
And just as most organisms like to live in a diverse community, we as a committee see the Sustainable Monument Plan existing not just in the school, but as a functioning part of the community, and integrating many pieces of the community into the program, and leverage all the great resources we have in the community. That could look like expertise for infrastructure or curriculum and career training. It could look like leveraging other assets for funding. We feel it would be a great position to have a community partnership point person, and have that person coordinate all the community partnerships that could really be taken advantage of under this program. And as part of that, we see that the action needs to be continual. It needs to be a process that is continually pushed along based upon a strong pre-assessment laying the groundwork for the plan. That has already been in progress, and that will continue to happen under the guidance of the students in particular, with their sustainability team, as well as in concert with teachers and administrators, school committee, et cetera, so that we can set good goals and have a clear plan of action to achieve those goals to really make a difference in the sustainability of Monument.
So to ask for all of this to happen without thinking outside the box, that would be a little crazy. So of course we did some research and found, and also put our heads together and found some great grant and award opportunities. I'm just going to highlight two. One regional opportunity is the Henry P. Kendall Foundation, which is a fantastic foundation that gives grants to schools for farm to school projects. The minimum grant award is $10,000. So that's no small amount. And they recently gave an award to Hoosick Valley up in central Berkshire. So they are not afraid to see success in Berkshire County. Another local opportunity is Berkshire Taconic Community Foundation, utilizing their partnership with Berkshire Hills to see how they can help us fund some of the things that we need in order for this to succeed. And to build off of that, the team that you remember from slide 2, all 16 of us, we thought, how are we going to make sure that we're held accountable? How are we going to make sure that this progresses? What if a student graduates? What if a teacher moves on? What if this whole cohort, has to go away for a while on vacation? So we want to make sure that there's a structure in place to make sure that this isn't just a one-off, that we can achieve our goals. So the first thing we need is a sustainability accountability team consisting of school committee liaisons, hint, hint, nudge, nudge, teachers, the student sustainability team, which Sam is setting up, the administrators, community partners, and parents. So for any of those of you that are super interested in what this presentation is all about, you can feel free to grab my contact information. My name is Mary at the end of this presentation, as well as Sam's. Jen Salonetti and I will be organizing this accountability team in the next few weeks. So, and of course it will be actively involving as much as the community as we possibly can. Another big token to see, to move this forward is a sustainability coordinator, whether it's just for Monument Mountain or for the whole Berkshire Hills district. How can we have somebody in charge, making sure that there's day-to-day progress, someone who can help us celebrate and measure all of the things that we are trying to achieve with Sustainable Monument. So that it will definitely involve at some point district funding. Of course, we're not assuming that the district is going to hand over some money for a sustainability coordinator this year, but keeping it in mind for future, and of course taking advantage of grant and award opportunities as much as possible.
So one more big piece that I want to emphasize is just the extreme value of environmental sustainability and of outdoor education. It's not just about preserving the land around us. It's just simply about how to build a stronger and healthier community. So I'm going to read this quote and then jump into a piece that is actually the preface of our main document that was written by me and a few other students. So for this valley, the river must be the center. Certainly it is the physical center, perhaps in a sense, the spiritual center. Perhaps from that very freeing of spirit will come other freedoms and inspirations and aspirations, which may be steps towards the diffusion and diversification and enriching of culture throughout this land. W.E.B. Du Bois, the Housatonic River. By growing up in the Berkshires, we have been given the opportunity to explore and appreciate the natural world around us. As Du Bois states, an appreciation of place is the foundation for a unified, just, and educated community. These three aspects of community are no longer an option. They are a necessity. In 2020, the year of vision, we have seen what happens when unity, justice, and education are forgotten. Lives are lost to both a new virus and an old system. We must learn to live by the words of Du Bois. Through education of sustainability, social, and environmental justice, we come much closer to being the free, inspired, and diverse community that Du Bois fought for. Not only is learning about these topics crucial to our success, it is also a responsibility on both an individual and collective level. As a school community, we must create a fair and sustainable place for both the people and the land. To truly achieve sustainability, it must be designed for all. This is the duty of every member of the monument community and essential to having a sustainable school. So to finish it out here, we're going to talk about what this means for the school committee. And first, I just want to thank everyone for your time. Thanks for being here. And, you know, we've already given a presentation to both Peter Dillon and Christy Farina, and also the Building and Grounds Subcommittee, and received a lot of awesome feedback and adjusted the document in our presentation. And we expect to continue receiving a lot of great feedback from the community, from anyone, and continually adjusting the document. So I'd like to pitch 3 simple questions to the school committee. Can this committee endorse Sustainable Monument 2025? Would the committee continue to be involved in this initiative? And can this committee support district-wide adoption by 2021? So thank you guys so much. That's what we have for you today.
Great. Are there any questions from the school committee members? So Rachel, I think you're unmuted. Any thoughts from the school committee members?
Were people looking for a vote on the request tonight? Is that the thought?
That's not my understanding. I think you might need to sit with it a little bit before you vote on it. But I defer to Sean and Mary on that.
I will say that the 3 questions that Sam asked at the end, the Sustainable Monument Committee is looking for answers on, but I understand you've got a full agenda. So I am more than happy to share that with you in a formal email if you'd like to review them at a different time.
That'd be great.
Yeah, I think we bring that back to another meeting. That would work the best.
Okay, so let's do that.
Peter, before you go ahead, we're having some technical difficulties tonight. It's our good fortune to have over 100 people trying to get in, many more than 100. And apparently CTSB has a limit of 100 in their Zoom account. So as I understand, they are working on it. But I know there are a number of people who have texted me and can't get in. So if you're hearing that from other people, that's the reason. And we did not know about this limit, and CTSB, as I understand it, is trying to figure out a solution.
Okay, thank you, Steve. I think in the worst case situation, this is being recorded and people can see it then. And then next week, I'm holding those 4 sessions where I'll go through some of this. Obviously, it would be better if everybody who wanted to participate could participate. And what's hard is the people that are hearing this aren't the people that are impacted. It's the 100 or so people who can't get onto the call. So our apologies on that. Mary and Sean, you put the questions in the chat, but send them to me. I'll send them to the school committee. Folks will sit with them and digest them and think about it, and we'll put you on a future agenda again and have part 2 of it. Okay?
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time, guys.
Good. No, thank you guys very much. Okay. So let me shift gears a little bit. The next thing on the agenda is the draft resolution to rename the middle school. As a point of context, I think I can share this and then I'll hand it over to Rich, but a little more than a year ago, there were non-binding votes in our 3 communities around renaming the middle school after W.B. Du Bois, and there was overwhelming support there. And the folks that organized that approached the school committee about discussing it at a future meeting. And there are 2 things on our agenda. One is to set a date for a potential hearing, and the other is a draft resolution. Rich, do you want to talk to the specifics of this?
Sure. As I think the other school committee members received a draft resolution that I just put together myself. I take no pride in ownership. I did want it circulated before the meeting just so you folks could look at it to contemplate any potential language changes. I will note I kind of took a look at our policy, specifically policy FF, regarding naming new facilities. And the 2 salient things I took out of that was, and I'll read from that policy first, a name with educational significance or inspiration should be chosen. So, our policies provide some direction on that. And also, and I know Steve and Peter may speak to this later, the policy does call for an orderly announced procedure. So my thought in submitting this proposed petition for this meeting was that everyone could take a look at it, we could give some thought and decide on a procedure going forward. I can read the petition into the record in a few minutes, but I'm not going to be making the motion tonight. But we can reserve it for some other time. And my request, and I know from my conversations with Steve, I think he's in agreement, is that we need to have some kind of formal public, and we're very good about public comment informally, but I'd like to see something more in the line of like a public hearing or a town meeting kind of format where it's just there, or what we do for our budget, to have people come in and give comments. So I don't know, Steve, should I read the petition, or how do you want me to handle that?
Yeah, I think there are so many people on the call that have not seen this. Read it, understanding what you've just said, that you're not making this as a motion. We'll be doing this probably in one of the first meetings in September, but we want to give people notification well ahead of time. Probably do it at a standalone meeting also, where this is the only topic. So maybe in person, or maybe Zoom again. We don't know what September is going to look like. If it's Zoom, we'll have to figure out a way to make sure we can have more than 100 people.
The other thing, Rich, we can do is obviously we can post it on the website and distribute it to our list. That won't get to everybody, but
That's good.
it'll help.
Yeah, but I think it's important that you read it for the record tonight and people hear it, so that they can start to think about it.
Sure. So it's a petition to name W.E.B. Du Bois Regional Middle School. Whereas the Berkshire Hills Regional School District, comprised of the towns of Great Barrington, Stockbridge, and West Stockbridge, operates a regional middle school providing education to 5th through 8th graders at 313 Monument Valley Road in Great Barrington, Massachusetts. Whereas Berkshire Hills Regional School District is entrusted by its member towns to educate their children and challenge them to be courageous learners, engaged citizens, and individuals of integrity. Whereas W.E.B. Du Bois was born and raised in Great Barrington and graduated from Searles High School, a Great Barrington public high school and predecessor school to the Berkshire Hills Regional School District. Whereas W.E.B. Du Bois received a Master's of Arts from Harvard University in 1891 and became the first African American to earn a PhD from Harvard University in 1895. Whereas W.E.B. Du Bois was one of America's greatest activists and scholars, authoring many fiction and nonfiction books, including The Souls of Black Folks, served as a professor at Atlanta University, and co-founded the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People in 1909. Whereas W.E.B. Du Bois's life and legacy is an inspiration for courageous learners, engaged citizens, and individuals of integrity. And whereas the member towns of the the Berkshire Hills Regional School District are governed by town meetings, and the 2019 Great Barrington Annual Town Meeting, the 2019 Stockbridge Annual Town Meeting, and the 2019 West Stockbridge Annual Town Meeting all overwhelmingly voted to name the middle school the W.E.B. Du Bois Regional Middle School. Moved that the regional middle school located at 313 Monument Valley Road in Great Barrington, Massachusetts, is hereby named the W.E.B. Du Bois Regional Middle School.
Steve,
Yes.
I would like to make that motion right now. I don't have any reason to waste time. I'm making that.
I will not accept that motion because it was not advertised as a vote tonight. It was advertised to set the public hearing date.
Just clean up while we're done this part.
But I will hear from any school committee members, but we need to keep it legal and transparent.
Like I said earlier, I take no pride in ownership. If people have changes, additions, suggestions on the language, or if they want to provide that later on through Steve, that's fine too. But
Rich, you've done a wonderful job, and I think that we should make that motion tonight.
You understand the position I'm in, Andy. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just following the rules.
No, I understand, Steve, your position. I agree with Andy. I have no changes to offer. I think we should have a discussion, a full discussion. This is not, to many people, a minor item. It is to many people in the community and has been a major source of controversy. I think we need what Rich has said, a full discussion of from the community besides what we heard at the town meeting.
Town meeting usually is accepted, but well, you know, whatever.
Anyone else? So my anticipation is September 3rd. We'll clarify that with Peter and we'll get plenty of publicity out. That's our first meeting in September. It may require us to do an extra meeting in September, but this is worth doing it. So we will work on this.
Can I ask a logistics question, Steve? Are we going to have it through Zoom or are we going to have it in person? A public hearing?
As of right now, if I had to say today, it will be Zoom because of the pandemic and our inability to social distance, etc., and the amount of cleaning it would take in the school after we had over 100 people. But things could change.
town meeting in Great Barrington went very well, Steve.
If we want to do it outside, I'm okay with that.
Well, I was wondering if that would be possible.
It would cost a little bit of money, and so that's something that the school committee at our next meeting, which could be as soon as next week, by the way, foreshadowing what's coming ahead of us, could decide, just because my only concern is not, it went very well outdoors, but it was quite a bit of not quite a bit, but it'll be a few $1,000s. So, you know, and we can't guarantee the weather. But I was very happy with the outdoor town meeting. You're absolutely right.
So Steve, just a clarification question. Do you want to set a date tonight for the 3rd of September and a particular time, and then leave it up in the air whether it's going to be outside or by Zoom?
Does anyone object to September 3rd from the school committee?
No.
No, but I agree with, I was just going to say, I think we said we were going to set a date for tonight, so I think we ought to do that.
You're right, absolutely. So I'm hearing no objection, so we'll set the date as September 3rd at 6 p.m.
Okay.
Also, just in addition, I know there was legal constraints on how town meetings operate, but we could do Zoom and live. You know, if people want to come in and we do it outdoor safe, but also if people want to participate by Zoom, you know, we don't have all those legal constraints a town meeting had. So,
absolutely. So I'm not against, and by doing that way, if the weather is horrendous, we could still do the meeting just as a Zoom meeting.
Right.
So that would work both ways. So I think we just need to work on the logistics of that to see if it's possible. So
okay,
we will work on that. So everyone's clear. It'll be September 3rd, 6 o'clock, either at the high school parking lot and Zoom or just Zoom.
Okay.
And this will be, Steve, a public hearing with a vote at the public hearing?
The school committee, after public hearing is closed, will vote.
Okay.
Okay.
I say that, the school committee also has a right to postpone the vote, so I can't speak for all 10 people, but as far as I'm concerned, we're voting that night. But
And it would be working, it will work like we have done on budget, where school committee people can, after the public discussion, then we have the discussion among ourselves.
yes,
Okay,
we'll close the public hearing. I've done a few of these and Rich will help me. We'll close the public hearing and then we'll debate ourselves, then we'll vote.
okay.
And my gut feeling right now is that will be the only agenda item, because I don't want us to feel rushed.
Right.
I think that it's an important topic, and it should be something everyone feels that they can have their 3 minutes of speaking without us sitting there saying they have a whole meeting. Okay.
Okay. So let's move on. Thank you, folks, for your help on that. So now we sort of transition to a thing that's connected to the start of school. It seems this year already I've presented you with 3 different calendars, maybe 2. Tonight's either the 3rd or the 4th. Since we last met, the commissioner changed both the number of days that students need to be in school from 180 to 170, and mandated that school districts start with a minimum of 10 days at the beginning of the year. We're actually starting with 11. So staff are starting to work on the 26th for 2 days of professional development. And then the week of the 31st and the week of the 7th. And tentatively, the first day for students would be September 14th. Okay? So at this moment, what I'd like you just to approve are those dates that we've got the same 2 days that we had already, and then 9 more days for professional development for a total of 11. The other change in this revised calendar is I did put back the Friday, March 19th as a professional development day. The downside of the 170 days, it's 10 days less for students than they would have in a typical year. The upside of the 170 days is it gives teachers and other staff 10 days to really work on planning, which we're tentatively discussing or scheduling as around Canvas, our learning management system, safety and distancing protocols connected to reopening, whatever form that takes. And then things that teachers normally do to get ready for the beginning of the year, curriculum planning, evaluation and assessment, working with their colleagues, and particularly in this case, if we do go back to school, setting up rooms in ways that meet the social distancing guidelines. And I'll get to all that detail later, but all I'm asking you now is to approve the revised calendar as presented. And before that, if people have questions, I'm happy to respond to those.
I have questions.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm all for the delayed start to the school. I think that's very prudent. I think that's a good way to go, particularly given the plan and things that we're going to discuss in a little while, though. But the commissioner gave 170 days as an option, not a requirement.
No, it started as an option. Verbally, it's a requirement and an expectation now, right? So we could. The 10 days are a requirement that we have to do the 10 days for professional development. If as a school committee you guys wanted us to go past, now our tentative last day is June 16th. If you wanted us to go to tack another 10 days on the other end of the year, then teachers would potentially be working many more days than their contracted days. And I think that would be something you'd have to negotiate, find the money, do a whole host of things.
Well, I'm not worried about the money. We're going to pay the teachers if they have to work. That's for sure.
Okay.
But, I mean, we canceled April break last year. I've been a long proponent. Every year we do the calendar, I question why we need a break in February and April. So I've never seen that as a necessity, and last year we proved it wasn't a necessity. You know, you put those 4 days of the April break back and just add a few more on, and we usually end. June 16th would be a very early end for us. You know, I don't know at this point, given what we have no idea where we're going to be at from a learning perspective, why I want to prejudge the length of the school year. I'm fully prepared to vote for the 11 professional development days to begin and for school not to start till the 14th. But I don't know. I think we should reserve until at least December on what the second semester is going to look like.
Okay. Is that you, Bill?
Yeah.
Is it a little musical interlude?
So let's get a motion here, because all we are, Rich, you're absolutely right. All we are voting on is the number of professional development days at the beginning and when school actually starts.
Zoom screen.
Well, I think I that's what I want to vote on, but we have an approved calendar right now that has to be amended.
Yes.
Bill, can you mute yourself, please?
I did it. I muted him.
I mean, I would, if you want to take a piece of it, I would vote to add the 11 professional development days and to make the first day of school for students September 14th.
That works for me, and we could figure out the rest later. I think the other stuff, there are a whole set of financial implications, and it's the subject to.
I think these professional development days are going to be really, really important to get everybody up and on the same page about what's going to happen this fall.
Yeah, agreed.
So, I mean, those days are primarily important. So, do I have a second on this before we continue discussion? So I don't
Yeah, I'll
forget that.
second it.
So Sean seconds, Rich made the motion. The one thing I would say is, Rich, I'm in total agreement with you, but I really think the real answer to this is voting on anything else other than Rich's motion. We have no idea what's going to happen in the fall, spring, winter. So we're probably going to end up changing our calendar again anyways. So, you know, why spend a lot of time worrying about it? Let's just worry about the first couple weeks and then we can deal with it.
That makes sense, Steve.
Anyone else from the school committee have anything to add to this?
No, I just want to understand, because the calendar that I'm looking at says that it's going to be a professional day on the 14th, but it also says all students. So we're not doing the professional day on the 14th. It's a yellow little block, and it says day PD.
I don't know what you're looking at. You may be looking at a previous version of something.
No, I think I think the 17th was originally scheduled as a professional development day, and it's still on there as that. I don't know if that was your intention, Peter. I think that's.
No, the 17th is the school committee meeting.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
No, actually, on mine that I printed out, on the one I printed out, it also says Professional Development Day on the 14th, and that was confusing. So I thought maybe
I don't. Are you guys looking at it on an iPad or something?
no, I printed it out though.
Okay.
I think it's a holdover from a prior draft, Peter. I do.
I do too.
Yeah. So Rich's motion was clear. So we know the 14th is not a professional development day. It's the first day of school.
Okay.
Correct.
All right.
Yeah, there are two versions, and the correct version is not the one with the thing on the 14th.
Okay.
Okay. So Everyone's voting on the same thing. I'm very satisfied.
Okay.
So we have a motion and a second. It's a roll call vote, of course. Ann,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Rich,
Aye.
Molly,
Aye.
Bill.
Aye.
I'll try Diane. I don't know if she got in or not.
I
Not hearing her.
don't think she's able to get in, no.
Okay. Dan,
Yes.
Andy,
Aye.
and I. It's a unanimous vote, 9-0.
All right, so Diane's trying to get into this meeting and we can't get her in?
No, I don't know if she's trying to get in, but we have a limit of 100, and that limit is full right now.
All right.
If somebody wanted to call Diane on their cell phone and put your cell phone on speakerphone, she could participate. I can't do one more thing in this meeting right now, getting like texts every minute and trying to deal. But if somebody wants to call her, that would be
Well,
wonderful.
does anybody have her contact info? Because, I mean, if she's trying to get in and can't get in, that's a problem.
I'll read her number to
Sorry,
the.
Peter, I'm not asking you, but, I just don't have her contact info.
I will send it to you.
Okay, good. Thanks, Steve.
Yep.
Okay, so moving along, and again, this is our sort of last technical thing, and then we can get into the thing that everybody's here for. There's a brief MOU for something we overlooked
Hang on.
in the cooperative contract.
Hang on a second.
Um,
I have Diane on the phone.
Never
Great.
mind.
Thank you for doing that. That's wonderful. So what we're trying to do is pay a number of summer aides, at least at the minimum wage rate. When we negotiated the contract, we missed that, and it makes it hard for us to hire those people. So I'd like your support for this MOU. It meets the cooperative group's needs, and I think it meets the district needs. And I think it's fairly straightforward. The only one that would not be minimum wage would be the supervisor rate, which would be a range of $15 to $20, and whoever the supervisor is more qualified. And then if somebody had worked for us the previous summer, they receive a 3% increase over what they made the previous summer.
Anyone have any questions? Do I have a motion to accept the MOU?
Make a motion to accept the MOU.
Bill made the motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it. Dan.
Okay, Dan, motion. I just got to find out who's. This is a little more complicated. I got to just mute someone. Okay. Didn't find him, but okay, we quiet it down. Any discussion on this? Hearing none, it's a roll call vote. Ann,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
Don,
Aye.
Rich,
Aye.
Molly,
Aye.
Bill,
Yes.
Diane. Yeah.
She said aye.
Okay, sounds good to me. And we can't hear her.
Diane on
So,
the phone if you want to ask her.
yeah, just need her to say aye.
Diane, say aye.
Pure democracy at its best. Dan,
Yes.
Andy,
I'm changing Rich's vote. No, this is Andy. I'm saying aye.
okay, and aye, so it's unanimous, Peter.
Okay, thank you all for that. So what I'd like to do now is talk a little bit about the school reopening plan. There are really many parts to this, and I sent it around early this morning. It took me a little while to finish formatting some of the appendices. And in a minute, I'll go through it from beginning to end. If it's not up on our website now, it will be tomorrow morning so people can follow it. There are a couple things that are important to know. This is very much a draft plan. At some point tonight, I'm going to ask you to approve, or even less than that, give your blessing, not to the whole plan, but to a couple pages in the appendix, which are responsive to questions from the commissioner's office that I have to respond to by tomorrow. And I'll get to that in a sec, okay? But what I'm sharing now is a much bigger plan that surpasses the expectations of the commissioner's and governor's office, which is starting to create a straw man that both, or more than both, that the school committee, that staff, that parents and community members can respond to as we work towards building a momentarily finalized plan for August 10th. So there are 2 days that are important. There's one tomorrow. I got to submit this 2-page thing, which are responses to 6 questions. And then there's August 10th, where I'm supposed to submit an expanded plan. My charge was to look at the viability of 3 approaches. The first one is a plan for in-person schooling. The second one is a hybrid model, and I'll go into some details about that, for part in-person and part remote or distance learning. And the third one is a plan for fully remote learning. There's the possibility going into this year that we might spend some time in each of those 3 models, right? There might be a time when it's safe and we can be in school face-to-face for everybody. We may not think it's safe, and we may do a hybrid thing for a while. We might also do remote learning for a while and switch between them. But the reason to do all 3 was to look at the implications of that from a scheduling and a staffing and a safety perspective, and every sort of possible permutation under the sun. We talked about the 10 days already, or the 11 days, and how that's going to be really useful to work with staff. And we talked about the start for students on September 14th. Guiding the plan are sort of fundamental issues that are in our mission statement, and I think are connected to all our work. A big one is safety of kids, safety of families, and safety of staff. And then the other ones are things we talk about all the time: equity, access, justice, achievement, and Bill's favorite phrase, rigor. All right, so we got all of those. I put together a really wonderful reopening task force, and then that group broke up into subcommittees and gave really significant, thoughtful feedback. That feedback is largely included in the appendix, but I think in editing we mix one group, and we'll go back and amend it and include that, okay? And we looked at the school day from when people arrive to when people leave, and all these different subgroups. So I mentioned the timeline. Couple things. So there's this submission to the tentative plan, those couple pages. After that, between July 31st and August 9th, additional work, refinement, specifically negotiations with our 2 unions or bargaining groups, likely another meeting at the end of next week, and we'll get to that at the housekeeping part at the end, but I'd like to propose one for Thursday, August 6th at the same bad time, to share, or before that to share a more updated version of it, and then we submit it. In a normal world where you submitted a plan, you'd stop working on it, I think it's actually incumbent on us to, even though we've submitted it, to continue to work on it and refine it up until the 14th of September, and in all likelihood, long past the 14th of September. So that's a timeline. Let me pause there for a sec because I sort of set the stage and respond to any questions from the school committee, and then I'll start digging into the nitty-gritty of it. Anybody?
I think we're ready for you to dig into the nitty-gritty.
Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about, oh, and there's one other thing. I should have mentioned this up front, and it's in the text. In writing the plan, I looked at several other models of who did a good job writing their plan. And even though we're very different as a community, I liked the Fall River plan. So our plan is inspired and partially modeled on the Fall River plan. Their superintendent is a guy, Matt Malone, and he was the former commissioner, and he started his career as a para and worked his way all up to teacher, principal, superintendent, commissioner. So I thought if I could piggyback on somebody's, his would be a good one. An interesting thing that came up, and if you've been following the news, you'll see this. In all the public work, I think in the country, the 6-foot spacing has been the gold standard, right? And the CDC talks about 6-foot spacing, and if you go to Big Y, the spaces in line, they're taped 6-foot boxes. The DESE and the commissioner shared a plan that proper spacing could be 3 feet. We were not comfortable with that. So we looked at what happens if you do 3-foot distancing, but we decided that 3-foot distancing doesn't work for us. So all our plans are around 6-foot distancing. DESE justified that with some medical research. Some of the unions, not like necessarily our local unions, but on the state level, questioned that and wondered if it was peer reviewed or not, whole host of things, right? So our assumption throughout this plan is that we could do our spacing at 3 feet. In my little packet, there are pictures of what it looks like when tables and chairs are 3 feet apart or 6 feet apart, and there's super complex grids and all sorts of things connected to that. One of the implications for us was teachers have rooms that often have more stuff than just student desks and chairs. So they're reading nooks and couches and bean bags and all this other stuff. And one of the things we need to do around this is to either move stuff out or put some stuff in storage. Because in the context of this, those things, sand tables, water tables, may not be safe or appropriate. Okay, so lots of work on that. I then went into the 3 models and did a pros and cons thing. If we use the 3-foot model, which I don't want to use and don't recommend, we could just about get all our students into all our schools. All right, so there's something neat about that. And working with kids face-to-face is certainly better than not working with kids face-to-face. The downside on the 3-foot thing is it's less than the CDC recommended 6 feet. There are all sorts of implications for busing and transportation, and I'll get to that. The folks on the reopening group aren't thrilled by 3 feet. I don't think anybody's thrilled by 3 feet, right? And having all our students in school at any one time in the context of all the other things we have to do would likely be problematic. So then we get to the next one, which is the hybrid model. And let me talk about it in a high level and then a couple of variations on it. But essentially, something like half the kids would be in school and half the kids wouldn't be in school. It lets us easily meet the 6 feet spacing. It lets us get the benefits of kids coming to school for the half of the students that are in. It lets us do better on the buses, and I'll talk more about buses in terms of not trying to transport everybody. The bummer about the hybrid model is it's disruptive for families and childcare, right? And we think we've come up with a plan where we can separate kids like A to K and L to Z, and siblings across the buildings can be on the same schedule as other siblings, and even teachers with kids can be on the same schedule as teachers, but it's still hard. The other thing, depending on what happens with after-school programs, activities, clubs, and sports, there's some issues there. The remote learning thing, we survived the spring, and some people excelled, but I don't think we collectively excelled. So we're doing a lot of work around remote or distance learning now, and those 11 days are a real blessing to do even more work. But there's some downsides to remote learning. I think we'll address a lot of them, but we've not addressed all of them yet. And then balancing in-person and remote instruction simultaneously is going to be complex and complicated. Okay? The last one is the full remote learning one. From a medical and scientific perspective, it's the safest, right? People aren't coming into school. And you could potentially take advantage of asynchronous learning, and students could sleep late, stay up late, learn any hour of the day to a degree. We still have a 5 to 8% internet connectivity gap, mostly for people who live in outlying towns or places where the geography precludes them from having decent internet access. So that's a headache. And if we were on a remote thing and it was full-time remote, the childcare burden would be hard on parents, but it would be consistent, right? On the con side, remote learning's not been as successful for us as in-person learning. I mentioned the connectivity thing again. We have to invest more in professional development and curriculum. I actually think we have that covered. And we may need to purchase some additional devices for faculty, staff, and students if we negotiate or decide to do more live learning than we have in the past, right? So those are the three things. Let me go back to the hybrid model and talk about sort of three possibilities within that. As an administrative team, we've talked about, there are two things. In loosest terms, I say you break kids up into two cohorts, A and B, but actually you break kids up into three cohorts. So some subset of high needs students, likely kids with IEPs, special ed students, and or English language learners, and they would largely be in school full-time. And then two groups of the rest of the students. Presumably there'd also be a fourth group, which is if we opted to do a hybrid thing, there might be some group that opt to do an entirely remote thing. So in any given time when students are in school, it might be closer to 55% of the students than 50%, because it would be the students in that group plus the students who would effectively be going full-time. we've been kicking around three ideas. One is that a group would go Monday to Thursday face to face, and another group would spend Monday to Thursday at home in remote learning. And the group that's coming in Monday to Thursday face to face would use Friday as a day for remote learning. We would use that Friday as a day to deep clean the building and to provide staff ongoing professional development, training, and support, and give them some time to balance the face-to-face work with the hybrid work. So that's one possibility. Another variation on that would be, instead of having kids alternate week by week, would be to have one group come in on Monday and Tuesday, and I'll call this the AARBB schedule. So one group would come in on Monday and Tuesday, the A's. The B's would be at home doing remote learning on Monday and Tuesday. Wednesday would be the day to clean the building, so to clean out whatever the group A did to the building. Thursday would be, and Friday would be the BB day, or days, and the A's would be doing remote learning on Thursday and Friday. So that's another variation. There's even a more complicated one, which would be ABRAB. So kids are alternating. That's my least favorite one, because I think it's harder to clean appropriately with that many transitions in 1 week. Okay, so that's all to be determined, but those are some possibilities. I'm obviously talking regularly with other superintendents. I have another call tomorrow. If I were operating in a vacuum, I might like the 4 days on and the 5th day is remote learning. If all other districts are doing the AA, REST, BB, then it may make sense to do that because people live and work across multiple districts. But not decided, just thinking about it, and we'll get you back on. Okay, I'll update you on that. Busing right now looks like about 30% of people who are eligible for busing will not take the bus. And you'll see in my packet there's some things, and we took some pictures from the Worcester schools. Normally our buses can hold 54 kids. We don't tend to have people, the littlest kids, see three people to a seat. In all likelihood, if we did the hybrid model, we could run our current buses with people spaced as they are in the second diagram and get about 24 kids to a bus and meet our needs, particularly because so many people look like they might opt out of the bus. The third one is a spacing model where it's just one kid, not to a seat, but one kid to a row. And that really makes the bus grossly ineffective, and you get 12 kids on a bus that could hold 54, and then we get into real problems. I think we can do the 24 one. A couple little variations. It's likely our practice would not have somebody sitting directly behind the driver, so that would be a seat we'd lose. So that's the busing thing. I'm gonna keep going. From a cleaning perspective, the plan is obviously to do tons of cleaning. Depending on which model we do, we could do it at different times. All sorts of cleaning products, electrostatic sprayers, and we've explored a variety of other things. we're entirely confident in the air exchange, which has been a big issue in the elementary and middle school. And we're very confident in the air exchange in the high school in good weather. The high school heating system's not so efficient. So as we circulate more air in the high school, like more outside clean air, the building gets colder. Steve's working with a contractor to figure out what we might be able to do to keep the air exchange rate high and the building warm. And we'll get back to you on that. And there's this whole thing about touch points. So all the things that get touched a lot would be clean. You all talked about the importance of masks. We very aggressively enforce that. Lots of hand sanitizing and so on and so forth. I mentioned the 11 days at the beginning of school. The report now details some of what I talked about, the cohort groups. We would limit our spaces and how they can be used by outside groups. Usually we pride ourselves on doing that. That's something we would back off on for the foreseeable future. And Steve has done a great job of ordering incredible amounts of protective equipment and other things. In the appendices, you'll see some of the work of the working groups, which will fold in. You'll also see a nice thing around special education and high needs students. They did really rich work. You'll see who the people are on the committee that helped me on this, and I really appreciate the 28 of them, the 29 of them. And then there's on page 34 and 35 the 2 pages that I would submit to the state. The last bit of it is the high-level summary of the parent or family survey, and that doesn't include the individual open-ended responses. I still have to work through those. There were, and you know what, and for some reason in the page I copied it doesn't show, but there were in the range of almost 700 responses or a little more, representing almost 900 kids. So we got a lot of feedback there. So let me pause there and respond to questions that the school committee has.
Peter, while they're thinking of that, can you just talk about the process, what the expectations are tonight to vote on, why we will need a meeting next Thursday, and what it looks like and through to the 14th for the school committee?
Yeah, so the expectation for tonight is I'd just like you to approve, and you don't even have to approve. You can just give me your blessing to submit pages 34 and 35, which is a very simple summary of what I discussed to meet the state's requirement. It's not binding or committing us to anything. It's just being responsive to their questions. The bigger expectation is by August 10th, we need to submit, with your formal approval, an expanded plan for reopening. What I've shared with you now, I tried to get ahead on this. The bigger document is a draft for that, and it's probably, I don't know, 70% complete, but we need to do more work on that. We need to meet formally with the unions around it, and we need to fine tune it. Even after we submit it on the 10th, hopefully with your approval, I imagine that at least the administrative team and I, and then within the buildings, the principals and their teachers and staff will continue to refine practices additionally, just because this is super complicated, right? And continue to do that through September and likely through the whole school year, making adjustments and shifts as we need. Steve, does that clarify it?
It does, thank you.
Okay.
So comments, school committee questions?
I have a quick question just on the short plan, but maybe a broader issue. And before, I do think we should vote tonight to approve or disapprove what Peter's going to submit tomorrow.
Yes, that's our plan. Yeah.
But on the second page of the short plan, Peter, there's references to, and if I pronounce this wrong, I apologize. And this is in talking about the use of the Canvas during the hybrid model. Asynchronous and synchronous lessons to students.
Yeah.
I botched that.
Yeah. So what is it? Yeah.
What is it, and how is that applied?
Yeah. So I mean, it's sorry. I try to not get jargony, but
First of all, I want you to pronounce it.
Synchronous and asynchronous, silly.
Okay.
But if it was a legal term, I couldn't pronounce it. Right? So all it means is time, right? So synchronous is like in real time, and asynchronous is not in real time. So a real time thing, like this conversation is a synchronous conversation. An asynchronous conversation would be if I recorded a series of math proofs, and then you could look at it at 3 PM or 2 AM. That's asynchronous, right? So, and there are advantages and disadvantages to both.
So, so I'm glad I asked. And I'm not going to start pegging you guys with questions about the Canvas software, because I know that's like a mountain you guys got to climb in getting that all organized.
Right.
But do you envision a scenario in the hybrid model where some students would be in a classroom being taught by a live teacher, and students would be at home viewing the same lesson through the Canvas software?
That's something that we're working on. I don't know. I don't really want to commit yet on that.
I think it's a good idea. That's why I'm wondering. That's why I asked.
Yeah,
I'm not.
I think the challenge of teaching 10 kids live in a classroom and simultaneously teaching another 10 kids through video might sometimes work, but might not always work. So I think we really need to work with teachers to think about that and what it looks like. One thing potentially to do might be to record mini lessons that get shared in the classroom and online at home, and then do different things with it. So we need to talk about it. We need to figure out how it works, give people time to play around with it, and develop a comfort level before we commit to how we're going to do it.
Well, there are definitely different modalities in terms of asynchronous and synchronous, and the amount of time that the attention span that you can get somebody to follow an asynchronous lesson as opposed to somebody who's actually in the room engaging.
Right.
It's a very different thing.
Right. So for example, today with some people from the high school, I was on a Mass Ideas meeting for 7 hours, right, staring at my screen. We got to go to the bathroom and get lunch, but it was still 7 hours.
That's punishing.
Yeah, it's too much, right? Really engaging, high-level people, good thoughts, good discussion, but I think what we can't do is say a teacher teaches 5 periods, and teaching 5 periods to kids face-to-face is the same as teaching 5 periods to kids at home. We need to really work through that.
So Peter, the Canvas programming does allow for kids to be in class and recording at the same time. I thought when I was sort of cruising around the site, it looked like there was the ability to record lessons as they're being taught. So that would be one tool that they would be able to use. I'm not saying that that's the way the class should be based upon, but it's a tool that they can use.
Right. If we think of it as a tool in the toolbox, it's that. What we do with that tool is yet to be determined.
That's what I'm saying. So there is the capability, as Rich was saying, is could that happen? Yes. Is that the best way to do it? Probably not. But right. it will be the recorded class discussion and conversation should and would be available.
Right, and really importantly, the role of teachers and teacher voice in helping determine how we do this is significant, right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, other things or questions or queries?
I had a question. It's Jason St. Peter. So my question is, since you're, besides Dan, you're, the educational expert, in your opinion, you feel that the students would gain more educationally from a hybrid model as opposed to a full-time at-home model. Is that what I'm hearing?
I do, because I think the face-to-face opportunities are indispensable. But the slight qualifying thing is it really depends on what's happening around us in the safety and health and wellness, not just of the kids and students, but the kids and teachers, but all the people those people come in contact with, right?
Oh, no, I agree. But from a purely educational standpoint, your opinion is that the hybrid model is better for the kids educationally versus completely online or at home model.
I think so, but I think it's qualified, right?
Right. Oh yeah. Health and safety is obviously a huge factor, but that's got to be weighed in. But I just wanted, from an educational standpoint, that's your professional opinion.
I think it's not just mine. I think it's probably everybody's, right? Like if we thought remote learning was better, the whole country and the whole world wouldn't have people go to schools. We'd all sit at home on our computers, stare at our screens. And in certain contexts, that might be the case. If you're working jobs and you need to get it in, if you're older and something else is going on, it might make sense. But the going to school, interacting with grown-ups and interacting with peers, even in a watered down, constrained way, I think is still better than not.
I don't disagree with you. I just, obviously we haven't seen a hybrid model, as far as I know, anywhere. So, that was my main point, is that, obviously a full-time at-school model is better than anything, any of the other two. But, hybrid obviously would be better than a full-time at home from an educational standpoint.
And then there's a whole other thing, which is the safety thing, right? So it's not an either or. There are multiple axes and multiple things one's weighing.
Peter, in regards to the survey, would they send out to the staff the survey? Was staff asked?
Yeah, so there were two surveys done. So the union in cooperation with me, but they really did it. They did a survey of the staff, and then I did a survey of parents and families.
Okay. In regards to the staff, how many of the staff, at the percentage would feel comfortable with a hybrid model? Because the association has presented, basically, in a way, when I read their proposal, they have kind of phase 1 and phase 2, which I think is equal to what we're going to do already with the 10 days extra. Now, they might have submitted this before DESE allowed the 10 days.
I think so, and I think we're on the same page there.
Yeah.
Like, so I think that's the first part of it. And I'll summarize this on sort of a high level, and probably not do it justice. As a group, the teachers are concerned about going to school and concerned, even in a hybrid model, right? And concerned about health and safety. As a group, parents are more eager for their kids to go back to school. So there's a little disconnect between the two groups. Obviously, some teachers would like to go back to school in a hybrid model, and some parents are not comfortable with going back to school in a hybrid model. There's some parents who would like to homeschool their kids or do a fully remote thing. But the parents, you could probably do a Venn diagram, and there's some overlap, but parents and teachers are thinking about this differently. Now, the other thing that's complicated is when I ask the parents, and I think even when the teachers ask the teachers, we didn't have as clear a sense now of what model we were talking about, right? So people were making decisions based on the information or lack of information they had at the time. And this might change and evolve over time, right? If there's an additional surge, then I think everybody would get much more conservative about a hybrid model. If our rate stays very low, then people might become more comfortable with it. One of the things I was looking at today was a report from the Harvard Public Health School that tries to categorize with hard numbers, really concrete numbers. If the infection rate is at this point, then it could make sense to do a hybrid model. If the infection rate is almost non-existent, then everybody could go back to school. If the infection rate is moving higher, then maybe you pause and go into a remote thing for a while. And I'd love to try to get an objective, agreed upon measure as the basis for doing it, because I totally get the emotional side of this.
Peter, I like that you referenced that kind of data. Whatever we do, I would like us to be able to use that kind of data to be safe when we need to, and not rely on somebody quite literally at the other end of the state to tell us what's safe and what's not safe. Frankly, opening and closing schools is a political decision. And the best that we can do to keep it with the science, I think we're the best off that we can be. But if we do, I'm not sure what the school committee's responsibility is with the final vote we're going to take to open or not open, or what way we're going to open schools. But the one thing that I'd like to do is that vote should include, it shouldn't be a blank check to open and stay open forever. It should have criteria that would include when we might need to step back a little bit. And
maybe we model it on either New York's phasing in or Massachusetts' own phasing in, and we know a lot about data. We know a lot about patterns. The devil lies in the details, right? How do we agree to the right? How do we agree to the right framework?
I think there's consensus around that approach, though.
Yeah, and that's something that I'm trying to work with the the county superintendents on. And that's something, and I'd like to be careful about not ever negotiating in public, but I think sort of that concept is a good thing to speak with the teachers and the paras about. Right. And again, and I look forward to hearing what they have to say about it, or some alternative that I've yet to consider.
So the negotiation team you will be hearing from Doreen to set a date to meet with the paras and to meet with Unit A.
Other things or other responses. In a minute, I can go to this. I know there are. I'm sorry. It's hard to manage multiple things. I know there's several questions or comments in the chat, and Steve, if you want me to, I can respond to some of those. What would you like me to do?
Yeah, part of the problem, we will manage this better next meeting, which we hope is next Thursday, because there's a couple of problems here. There's not the raise your hand feature that I'm used to, which makes it a lot easier. So trying to get people to respond as difficult as it is. I will tell you what, Peter, I'll play MC for a moment here and go through the chat. A lot of the chat or comments that are
Steve, I have questions about the fairness of that, because we have people who are locked out of this, and we already publicly published dates where people are going to be able to give input over the next week.
So we'll just do those. Yeah.
Okay, so let's do two things.
We have a school board member who's not properly on.
Yeah.
We literally have a school board member who's not involved.
Yeah.
She's on a phone with a computer, and that's not fair.
Yeah. We could discuss that, but what I will say this is there will be another school committee meeting next week. There will be 4 sessions that Peter is hosting. Plus, if anyone wants to email Doreen or myself, I've just volunteered Doreen, we will share the email with the rest of the school committee if they have comments. Of course, you can't answer to the entire school committee, we know that, but we'll do any of those options. So yeah, I agree. You're correct on that. Peter and I will work, or I will work with our technology people about some changes that we need to make so that this comes out a little better. It's a positive thing. Donna is asking, is there public comment tonight? Donna, that's what I'm saying. There is no public comment tonight. Not everyone got into the meeting. There's over 99 people at the meeting, close to it. I start taking public comment at 3 minutes apiece. It's going to be a long night. Plus, I don't see a feature that allows people to raise their hands on this model, which makes it difficult. I'm not going to just have people speak, and the first one who speaks over someone else is going to be the one who gets to speak for the 3 minutes. So tonight, we will not take public comment. There will be plenty of time before school starts for public comment, both to Peter and the school committee. So once we refine this a little bit, we will have public comment. You can email, you can wait for the next meeting, you can go to one of 4 of Peter's sessions that he's announced, and we will find time for public comment. School's not starting tomorrow.
Steve, is there a way?
You can also email all the board members with any of your questions.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely.
And our email addresses are on the school website, I believe.
Yeah. Dan, was that you?
Yes. Is there a way in Robert's Rules of Order to continue this school committee meeting to a later date? Because I feel like people should have a chance to public comment. We've obviously failed in our technology to make that appropriately happen. So is it possible to continue this meeting the next week, or is it just another meeting?
Well, because of the posting requirements, it's what I thought we would do. We would put the updates. We would do just like tonight, but we would put on the next agenda public comments. So that would assure us that we take public comments. That does the same.
I think we should put public comment first and have it for at least an hour.
Fine.
And maybe, Steve, you can do what other municipal boards do, is have some kind of registration, so you can, people who want to make comments can email or somehow sign up, and you can call on them to go through. I don't know, just a suggestion.
So someone is asking if we shouldn't hear from the union tonight. It's inappropriate to hear from the union tonight because we're going to be in negotiations with them, and I would like to talk to them first before, and once I open the door up to allow someone to speak, there are a lot of other people who want to speak too. So I value what the union has to say, and I'm looking forward to it, but I'd like to do that first as a school committee in executive session, and so that we can really understand and not do it at a public meeting. I'm not negotiating in public.
Um,
I'll potentially offer one thing, and it may be too long. They did share a letter with us about phased reopening. Would you like me to read that into the record? Is that useful, or is that too long?
No, that would be fine to read into the record.
Okay. So let me do that. And Bill, I think some of what you talked about in the phase thing actually got addressed by the extra 10 days.
Yeah.
All right. So this is a letter from the Berkshire Hills Education Association, signed by their executive board. And it's to me and the school committee chairman. To the members of the Berkshire Hills Educational Association, stand in full support of a phased-in remote learning plan as we open the 2021 school year. We ask the district to work together with us on improving, refining, and setting equitable standards for remote learning. Educators in the Berkshire Hills Regional Public Schools care deeply about the safety and well-being of our students, the quality of the education we provide, and the health and safety of the entire school community. We have consistently shown that our dedication and professionalism and what we consider our students' success to be a first priority. This has been true historically, and this has been demonstrated again during the many COVID-19 emergency situations that have arisen since March. We have gone above and beyond in extraordinary circumstances. We have worked long beyond our typical school day, pivoted from in-person instruction to remote learning, and basically in the course of a weekend, balanced home and work requirements during a pandemic, and in many cases sacrificed our own social emotional well-being for that of our students out of goals, knowing that achieving them often means working long into the evening, sacrificing time with family, self-care, and personal health needs. We do this out of a dedication to teaching. So phased reopening, and there are 4 stages, so I'll go through the 4 stages. Stage 1, the first stage is for teachers, paras, substitutes, and all other personnel to have uninterrupted time together to prepare for the return of students. This time will be used for things including but not limited to setting up classrooms and other spaces, learning about the health and student and safety protocols, making time for professional development and curriculum development, and preparing for phase 2 and 3, the social emotional learning, academic learning, and possible hybrid remote instruction that will be fundamental to the first weeks of school when students return. The district professional allotment at the start of the school year is not adequate in the context of our current crisis. We simply need more time. BHEA believes the Canvas LMS should be phased into use by teachers, students, and parents over the year. The timeline has been presented for the implementation of Canvas is not proven to be realistic. Teachers will not be ready to use the Canvas system as their tool for remote learning. There's simply not enough time to deploy this LMS with integrity and mastery before the start of the school year. Flexibility with Google Classroom and other systems is paramount for student success. Yeah, I'm not going to editorialize. Stage 2 of the reopening, the stages for educators to meet students and families either in person or remotely as public health context allows. The time will be used for things including but not limited to meeting one-on-one with families and students and preparing them for the new health safety protocols, including physical distancing and mask wearing. This time should be used for social emotional wellness checks, basic need assessments, and evaluation of technology needs and reconnecting with students, families, and school communities. The new reality of school year will need time for review and refinement. Stage 3 is the resumption of remote instruction learning, and it focuses on the first 6 weeks of learning. The foundation of any successful school year is built in the first 6 weeks. During this time, educators and students will build relationships with each other, establishing their learning community, school climate, and culture. It is a time when we set expectations and rules, learn new structures and routines, and lay the groundwork for social emotional learning and academic learning throughout the year. Stage 4 will be based on an assessment of where things stand, both in terms of public health and educational progress under the initial reopening plan. This assessment will seek input from students, parents, and the community. It should take place 6 to 8 weeks after the start of school. Based on this assessment, we will collaboratively determine next steps, e.g., continue with the initial plan or make modifications. In the recent survey of our membership, for which we had a likely unprecedented member return rate of 100%, health and safety concerns regarding the reopening were reported as critically important to 83% of our members. We have taken the position of remote learning because both in-person learning and hybrid learning place us all in a risk category that is worrisome. To be asked to possibly put our health, possibly even our lives, and those of our family members on the line for the sake of reopening warrants serious reconsideration. It is in the essence a request for us to become essential frontline workers. Remote learning provides a safe option for providing an education to our students without putting our members' health at significant risk. All it will take is one case to cause irreparable harm to our school community. How would we recover as a community from that event? Additionally, in our survey, 74% of BHEA members voiced significant concern about all within our school community being able to abide by the necessary health protocols to keep all safe. Even in a non-COVID year, students come to school feeling unwell or treated at home for a fever or other symptoms before being brought to school. Throughout the summer, we have seen children in our community not engaging in social distancing, not wearing masks. Vacations and time away present another added layer of complexity with new travel bans recently implemented. Teachers unwell or exposed to someone not feeling well will need to quarantine, as will other students. From buses to masks to shared materials and shared bathrooms, each presents a myriad of other cascading concerns. There's no way to guarantee safety. BHEA supports a remote learning plan that prevents its members from taking on such serious risk while still providing an education to our students. Doctors and scientists have not fully reassured the public of the utmost safety to return to school buildings while the deadly disease of COVID-19 persists. We are not fully open as a community because of the safety and health of concerns. It seems contradictory to ask teachers to return to an environment that is potentially unsafe for hours at a time with unpredictable variables given the multiple issues to try to mitigate. In light of the current rise in COVID-19 throughout much of the country, directly caused by premature reopening of communities, our members feel it is unsafe for students or teachers and staff to return to classrooms. Specifically, the following are concerns. The majority of teachers, support staff, related service providers, and paraprofessionals do not feel safe returning. Untested and possibly unsustainable scenarios for compliance with PPE distancing guidelines puts the physical and mental health of students, staff, and administrators at risk. Teachers cannot be asked with policing students' bodies and behaviors as opposed to being educators who seek to connect with students and cultivate a love of learning. Staff remain vulnerable and their families remain vulnerable to COVID-19 exposure with any in-person plan. Children can be and are asymptomatic carriers of the virus. There are clearly documented disproportionate dangers to people of color from COVID-19, furthering racial injustice. Building and environmental concerns are worrisome, such as monument mountains, outdated ventilation, and rooms without windows across the district. We cannot ignore the science behind coronavirus transmission and spread. Coronavirus continues to spread throughout the U.S. The only true safe option is for improving distance learning and using the remainder of summer and September to strengthen and implement those improvements. I'm almost done. I got 2 little paragraphs. We have the tools to remain socially and therefore educationally engaged, to open in any other capacity with the likelihood of closing it again due to a surge in a first or second wave infection rates ignores the reality that without testing, contact tracing, and proven antibody therapies, the risk level for the entire community is too large. To our respected members of our school community and respected members of our district, we implore that you not allow any cause to justify risks that may threaten the health and life of even one person. As together we fight COVID-19, let us continue to live, to teach, to learn in the safest possible way in remote learning. And it's signed by the executive board, Donna Astian, Helen Eline, Laura Picetto, Glenn Chamberlain, Dan Bouvier, Chrissy Lucy, Amy Salonetti, Elizabeth Sparks, Kathleen Gillis, and Jake Pinkston.
Okay, so we've got through the reopening plan. Rich, you have a motion. You're muted, Rich.
Steve, I actually have two motions. 'Cause number one is I do have a draft motion on the mask conversation we had at the last meeting. But I think we still need to vote to approve just the submission to DESI that's due tomorrow. So do you want me to do a motion on that?
Yes.
I motion to approve the BHRSD reopening response to DESI dated July 28th, 2020, and to authorize the superintendent to submit that response.
Second.
Any discussion? It's a roll call vote. Ann,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Rich,
Aye.
Molly,
Aye.
Bill,
Yes.
Diane.
Diane can, Diane can get on because there are only 83 people.
No,
Aye.
there she is.
I don't. Okay, I do. Dan,
Yes.
Andy,
Aye.
and I. It's a unanimous vote of the school committee. Okay. The other thing I'd like to do right now, Rich, you have a second motion you want to?
I do. I'm prepared to make my motion on the mask that we talked about last week, if you believe that's in order.
I do believe that's in order.
Okay. I move pursuant to Berkshire Hills Regional School District policies, BGFB emergency policy, and CHD administration and policy absence, that the following emergency policies shall be in effect. Students in grade 2 and above are required to wear a mask, face covering, and that covers their nose and mouth. Students in kindergarten and grade 1 should be encouraged to wear a mask, face covering. Face shields may be an option for those students with medical behavior and or challenges who are unable to wear masks and face coverings. Transparent masks may be the best option for both teachers and students in classes for deaf and hard of hearing students. They may also be useful for teachers and younger students who rely on visual facial cues. Adults, including educators and staff, are required to wear masks/face coverings. Exceptions to the mask face covering requirements must be made for those for whom it is not possible due to medical conditions, disability impact, or other health and safety factors. Masks should occur throughout the day. Breaks should occur when students can be 6 feet apart and ideally outside or at least with the windows open. Masks/face covering should be provided by the student/family, but extra disposable face masks should be made available by the schools for students who need them. Reusable masks/face coverings provided by families should be washed by families daily. District shall provide masks to families experiencing financial hardship and unable to afford masks or face coverings. Masks/face coverings are required to be worn by everyone on the bus during school bus transportation. The educators and staff are hereby authorized and directed to remove from and or deny access to the schools to anyone failing to comply with this policy.
Go to second.
Can I ask, should there be something in there about people?
Can I have a second before we have
Oh,
discussion?
okay.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Bill, you're recognized.
Could there be something in there that pertains to anybody in the building? For example, suppliers who come in, contract laborers, workers who aren't part of the school district.
However you want to do it, Bill, I'm fine with it. I use it for that. I use the term adults, not educators or staff. So it specifically says adults. I think that would anybody, parents, right, delivery people, anybody who has any business in the school, I think is captured by that.
Okay.
And I will add the two policies that I referenced. The emergency policy allows us to just, without the regular procedures, immediately enact a policy, which I think is important because for your concern, people even going to school tomorrow to do work need to be wearing masks.
Right.
But I will tell you that policy, we can only do emergency policies for 60 days. So the policy committee is going to have to get together and do a more comprehensive policy, which may be a good venue to talk about details, specific types of masks, anything else. You know, I think it's probably no secret to you folks. I just cut and paste from the DESI policy and put it in there
Okay.
to make it fit our needs. So I just want to get something in place now so that the school, today going forward, the school staff are authorized to deny access to people who don't have masks.
I think it's good. I would imagine that MASC will issue a model policy within 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Right? That could maybe inform our longer term policy.
Dan? Did you? Okay, I thought you wanted to speak. Anyone else?
Yeah, I guess this will be taken up later, but I just want to make sure. I know there's certain type of masks, like especially those N95 masks that have the release valve that protects you but doesn't protect anyone else because you're spewing forth all your release particles. So I think going forward, that's something that whatever committee is going to look at that to make sure that the masks not only prevents the person wearing them, but also does the job of preventing it from infecting other people.
Yeah, and I would say this, Jason, for the 60 days that we have, the school administration and staff has the ability, if they don't feel that the mask is serving the purpose and there is a rationale behind it, they can ask people to change their mask and give them a disposable mask.
Great. Thank you.
Anyone else on the school committee? So roll call vote. Ann?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
John?
Yep.
Rich?
Aye.
Molly?
Aye.
Bill?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Aye.
Oh, sorry.
Dan?
Yes.
Andy?
Aye.
And I, so it's unanimous. While we're here and deciding, I don't necessarily need a vote, but I need at least to hear if anyone objects to meeting next Thursday, August 6th at 6 p.m.
I'll be there.
No, I have no problem with it.
So we will be meeting next Thursday, August 6th at 6 p.m. We will start off with public comment.
Okay. And will either Steve work with CTSB to get a setup that can hold more people, or will use a different provider that can hold more people?
I also want that we only have people from the district making comments.
No, I'm not doing that, Sean. There are school choice parents who may want to make comments. There are teachers that may want to make comments, not from the district.
Right.
I mean, I agree with you, but there are
I
people.
get what you're saying. I just want to make sure that we don't, if people are involved in the district, that's fine. If people are just randomly showing up and making comments, that I don't want to hear.
I hear you.
Are you going to put an executive session on the agenda for next week, or hold off on that?
Probably hold off on that. I don't think we'll be ready for it.
No, I don't either. But also, if you have it, you don't need to use it either. I don't know, however you want to.
But we haven't, yeah.
One other thing I'll mention, CTSB did do a little workaround, so there are another 20 people who are watching the meeting on Facebook right now, live.
Yeah, and I appreciate them doing that. Peter, probably just after this meeting, we'll talk for 5 minutes, so we'll figure out where we're going to go from here in technology.
Okay, good.
Okay, anyone else under the COVID-19 part of it? The only thing I'm going to say is public comment will start at the beginning of the next meeting. I will give Peter a chance to give us an update if there's a substantial update changing some of our plans, because who knows what's going to happen in the next 7 days. So people may comment on something that's outdated already. So I will give Peter a chance to at least give a brief update if there are major changes from what we've heard tonight, so that people don't waste their time talking about something that's not even going to happen.
And again, I imagine something on the order of 70% of where we land is already articulated and in that document. It may be organized slightly differently. We may commit to a particular direction. We may negotiate something. If we and I think there'll be clarity about which of the hybrid schedules we're recommending.
Sounds good. Anyone else for comment from the school committee?
Yeah, just on that, because it constitutes a large share of the questions I get about this. And I know MIAA did take a vote on extending the fall season or changing the schedule of the fall season last year. Maybe we should have an agenda item and have our athletic director or somebody on who can speak to the situation with fall sports.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, and I think that's important. There's one other sort of general area that's very much impacted by this, which is music, drama. There's a third piece to it that I'm blanking out on, chorus, and we'll do some more work on that, and we're expecting additional guidance there. I also didn't talk much about the food service program, and the expectation would be that if we're on a hybrid model, kids would eat in classes, not in the cafeteria, and that for kids who would normally get food, we'll continue the weekly thing that we've been doing. The other last thing that we're exploring is if we do a remote learning thing in a hybrid thing, that we might have some safe distance space where kids who don't have connectivity at home could be in a supervised distance place that's not typical classrooms to do remote work in school.
Can I ask a process question
Yeah.
before we end? The Teachers Association has set out a pretty firm position. And what we've been talking tonight and what you've offered is a hybrid. When and under, is this going to go with the negotiation committee from our committee and their negotiation committee? How will this divide, which I think has a lot of commonalities in both, what's the schedule for that? Are we going to know by next week whether they can compromise, or are we going to be able to adjust maybe what we've talked about? I guess how long will this take, and is this a contract? Is this like contract negotiations?
So here's my thinking on it, Bill. I was asked by the commissioner to articulate 3 models, right? Face-to-face, hybrid, and remote. And then somebody asked me which of those do I like, and I said I like the hybrid approach. The teachers like the remote approach. I think we start conversations next week and we see how far we get. I still have to present the 3 models to the state. I don't think we're implementing what approach we're doing till September 14th. I'd like to know, and everybody would like to know, if I were a teacher, I'd like to know way before September 14th, but I don't think we turn into pumpkin. Right, so I think there's room for ongoing dialogue.
Okay, Bill, what we're going to do right now, I think Doreen's off tomorrow. So Monday, we will try to get a meeting set up between the negotiating team and Unit A and C. And I'm quite confident we always have good meetings. They're cordial. I'm sure they will be, and we'll come to some sort of it won't be a compromise, some sort of a working agreement.
This is... Yeah.
And Bill, the other thing is, I expect that there's additional work going on at the state level between the state union presidents and the commissioner and the governor, and I wouldn't be surprised if they reach some agreement like the 10 days thing that gives us additional guidance.
I did get a question from someone that said, is it possible that after we go through all this, DESE could say to Berkshire Hills Regional, we feel from what you've submitted to us, you will go with this model? Or do you feel, and legally could they do that and impose something on us that we as a school committee may not agree with?
I think Massachusetts is all about local control, and the authority rests with you. That being said, I think the governor could issue an emergency order depending on any circumstance.
Okay, all right. I'll let Rich, who's a lawyer, he can explore more of that.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think there's a high chance that we get, if there's a material change in the circumstances with regard to the COVID, that we get directives from the state, just like we did back in the spring. I think it's an open question now as to where these decisions are made between the state, us, and the superintendent. I'm not worried about us and the superintendent. We'll figure it out and get to the right answer. But if your question is, does the state have the power to dictate it to us? They do.
Yes, they do. Okay, there was, just so everyone's clear, what we voted on tonight was to send the short form, I will call it, to state with the three choices in it. We made no decisions on what we're doing September 14th. So that's still a little ways away.
And importantly, Steve, the particular question was which pre-opening plan are you leaning towards for the start of the school year? So we're not making a commitment where we're indicating my preference at this moment in time, and that could certainly change in overtime, right?
Yes. And that draft is due when, Peter?
This 2-page thing is due tomorrow.
Right, so any criticism of us not taking public comment tonight before sending that in, any public comment would not have gotten into this either. We're on a very tight timeline. So this is just the beginning of what we have to send to the state. So let's move ahead to subcommittee reports. Policy has not met, but they will. Jason, Buildings and Grounds.
Yes, I'll make this short. We did meet on the 23rd. 3 items on the agenda. The first was a presentation similar to what we had tonight from the Monument Sustainability Committee. They pretty much said everything that they presented to us. The one thing I would like to highlight is that presentation was just a brief overview. They went into a great amount in depth on the specific plans, and I urge everyone to read those, the details. They put a lot of time and effort into it, and it's really fascinating and great stuff. So I would just urge everyone to read that, the whole document itself. Second, Steve gave us an update on the schools. In general, a lot of painting has been going on. 75% of all the rooms and hallways have been painted. Also, Steve mentioned that all 3 buildings have been officially commissioned. That's needed to be done on a regular basis. Air filtering, filter changes, etc. As far as airflow, I know that's big in the news. Peter touched on it somewhat, but the middle and elementary school is set to exchange the air in the building for each room 4 times in an hour. Just for frame of reference, hospitals usually change it 4 to 6 times an hour. So we're within that range as far as a hospital goes. With regard to the high school, those numbers have been in the high 3s. He's been trying everything he can to get to a 4. He hasn't quite gotten there, but still the high school has very good, high 3s, almost 4 times an hour. The air is exchanged in that building. Again, Peter pointed out that the problem with the high school is that when we filter the air, there's no cooling mechanism. So when it's summertime or spring or fall, the air that exchanged is muggy. So sometimes it can give that kind of stale smell. It's fresh air, but it's just the high humid air from outside. Regarding the filters in these devices, they're changed 3 times a year. Steve also mentioned that he's ordered over 80,000 disposable face masks. He's also ordered some N95 masks as well as the cloth masks. He's also ordered a bunch of face shields, outer layer, gloves. Over 100 hand sanitizing stations, hundreds of gallons of the hand sanitizing liquid. What else? then aside from that, just normal stuff. The wastewater treatment plant, some normal pump issues. Filters are in order, so they should be coming here in August. Let's see. Peter also mentioned the electrostatic sprayers are also on order. They should be coming in next week. Steve also touched on the janitors. Usually there's one janitor on staff during the day and 3 to 4 during the evenings, custodians. If we do go back, whether it's a full-time or hybrid model, that's probably going to have to shift to 2 or 3 on during the day to increase the amount of cleaning, and then the other 2 or 3 on at night for the normal cleaning. There's a very high chance we might need to hire some more cleaning staff if we do go back in any type of hybrid or full-time model. But again, we'll test it out the first few weeks and see if or what we needed, and then go from there. Let's see. The third topic we had was just, regarding future high school extraordinary funding that we struggled with over the last 2 years. And we as a committee have just decided to kind of let Christy lead that. And if she has any specific requests or presentations we're going to defer to her going forward and then take it from there. And that's about it. Let's see. Diane, Bill, Molly, anything I missed or any questions at all? Or anything, I'm sorry, you wanted to add?
I think you covered it all.
Okay. Anybody else? Any questions?
Covered it all. Yeah, questions? Rich?
I had a question, and I don't know if this is for you, Jay, or for Peter, but any communications, actions, or where are we at with monitoring the statement of interest that was filed back in May?
No, I can reach out to that office and Diane Sullivan. Quite candidly, I've been a little preoccupied with this, but I will.
I just know from their meeting minutes that they are active, so that's why I think it's important.
Yeah, no, I've got a cell phone number on my desk. I'll call her tomorrow.
Anyone else? Moving ahead to superintendent's evaluation. Ann, anything?
No, I've not met.
Okay, thank you. Andy, technology subcommittee?
Nothing formal, but lots of stuff going on around campus.
Thank you. Finance subcommittee has not met, and we haven't, district consolidation and sharing subcommittee has not met. The personnel report, Peter, is there anything you want to say?
No, let me just pull it up. I think it's relatively straightforward, and we've had a long meeting. I would like to recognize Pat Harper. She's a middle school nurse who's been with us for many, many years, and she decided to retire at the end of the year. She's been great and took care of her kids and kept them healthy and patched them up when they weren't. So I appreciate her service and the time she spent with us. And I think that the rest of it are largely summer stipends and good work that people were doing connected to our Project Connection program, and sometime we'll give you an update on that. But some really nice things happened there. And then the last subset of people are people who did summer grounds work and associated things. So I also very much appreciate them.
Anyone have any new or old business? So we will meet next Thursday, and hopefully we'll have the technology issues cleared up. Thank you, everyone. It was an excellent.
Yeah, sorry about that. That was frustrating.
Yeah, by unanimous consent, we are adjourned.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Rich, I just sent you an email.
Okay.
Good night.